Arsenal spent big this summer, $335 million to be exact. They bought in Eberechi Eze for 81, Zubimendi set for 77, Gyökeres, Madueke, the list goes on. They had a very expensive summer, but hopefully it will pay off in the Premier League and the Champions League. But here is what head coach Mikel Arteta had to say when he was asked if Arsenal can win the Champions League. Take a listen.
Do you now see this as a moment where you can go one step further and possibly get to the final, win the competition maybe?
Yeah, like the rest of the teams that they have done the same and they continue to do that and they've won it in many occasions. That's the aim in the beginning, but we all know that it's going to be a really long journey. The margins in this competition are super small and you have to be at your very best from day one to give yourself the best possible chance.
And what in particular did you learn from the competition last season which you're going to take into the competition this time around?
That we are good enough, that we can compete against any opposition on the day. And on top of that, two things have to go your way. You need to have a full squad available when it comes to the most critical moments in the season. And then as well, when the ball has to go in the right moment or with the right decision, it has to be as well because the margins are so small.
Stefano, in that press conference, Arteta said, look, I've learned that we're good enough to compete. Last year, he even said that we were the best team in the competition. Do you think Arsenal this year are even better squad with all these transfers coming in over the summer? Without a doubt.
This is a more complete side. This is a team that is ready now to fully compete on all fronts. Champions League, Premier League, and all. And it will be a tough start when they have some injuries here to start their Champions League campaign. But I do think that this is a complete side with the biggest thing, the biggest word that I would describe this Arsenal side with and why I think they are ready to compete, depth. Mm-hmm. They never had depth. They did not have enough players last year behind to make up for those injuries when they happen. But now they have pretty much 2 or 3 at each position that can start and win games for them, have big results. And I think when you look at the lineup that we're thinking about them putting out today in that match against Athletic Bilbao, you're going to see some of that depth because no Saka and no Ødegaard. They're going to have other players step up. And you saw some of the players stepping up. Zubimendi, out of nowhere this past weekend, gets his first brace ever in professional football, which is incredible just to see him have that ability, and the fact that depth is providing for Arsenal is massive.
Yeah, we talk about Arsenal's need last season, and they addressed that by getting a striker who, yes, he scored a bajillion goals in Viktor Gyökeres. It's good to see him getting goals. The most important signing that they may have had this summer was getting Martin Zubimendi, in my opinion. His ability to control the game, to be the metronome, the tenor. Look at this strike, man. Ooh, he looks like a Mikel Lahoud. No, just kidding. Anything like me during my career, I would have hit this out of the entire damn stadium. But I want to go back in all seriousness, jokes aside. There was a comment that was made during the international window, and I think we need to give Martin Zubimendi and Andrea Berta, is the architect of this, a lot of respect. Rodri, the reigning Ballon d'Or winner, they said, who do you see as next in line to take your mantle? He said, Martin Zubimendi. He is going to be Spain's next biggest conductor, and that's high praise. I'm believing what I'm seeing because it pushes Declan Rice further forward. Mikel Merino, we know he can get goals in the Champions League. He's going to take his international form with Spain. It frees him up to now get numbers in the box. And when you have the 2 wide players in Eberechi Eze, who's already gotten off the mark, things are made for this Arsenal side, and I'm going to add a word. There's a maturation process we're seeing with Arsenal. There's a self-confidence and a self-belief. The biggest person that could get in their way aren't the players. It could be Mikel Arteta. Is he willing to take the reins off? Because when we look at how they line up from last season to this season, I know, Bogert, we were sitting there talking about the difference. It's got to be the width and the fullbacks, no?
Exactly, and that frees up a guy like Eze to play in those half spaces, and rather being that winger with the old saying of chalk on his boots, he's closer to Gyökeres. He's closer to natural assist zones and where he can be more dangerous. So I really, really like this change. And it goes back to Zubimendi because where he can hold between the center backs and be somebody, we talk about what he does on the ball because he's excellent, but he's good in transition moments defensively. And again, as you said, it does free up Declan Rice to get further forward. So not only Is it putting the wingers in better positions, more dangerous positions? It frees up the eight, and particularly Declan Rice, that he doesn't have to hold. He can go into the box and be a box-crashing player that's going to get more goal contributions this season.
I do think that Eze as well provides just so many options for Arteta, because he can play centrally, can play on that wing, even though, like you mentioned, he's not really an out-and-out winger. He can cut in and be able to link up play a little bit with Zubimendi as far as going back a little bit deeper. And when Ødegaard and Saka are in, it's a whole different situation when their attack becomes one of the more dangerous attacks that we see in all of Europe. So I like the depth that they have, but I also like just to be able to have different players that can play multiple positions is massive for a team like Arsenal trying to compete on all fronts.
And Michael, we saw last season as well, it was hard for Arsenal to compete in the Champions League and in the Premier League, because it was either like we have to kind of focus on one because they had the injuries and they didn't have people to back them up. William Saliba is back in training, so that's obviously a huge positive for them. They have no Martin Ødegaard for this Champions League game because he's obviously out. But even just to have Saliba back, plus all the additional players to add to their depth, that's a huge positive for them.
Yeah, I want to give a big shout to Christian Mosquera. Yeah. He's the unsung hero. And yes, they dominated a Nottingham Forest side that under Big Ange, they looked cavalier. It was everything we thought Ange Ball would be. They were very open. But I watched Christian Mosquera last season in La Liga. He's composed. He brings his lunch pail. He brings his workman-like presence to this Arsenal side. And when you have a leader at the back in Gabriel, who's gone to another level, and he's teetering, and dare I say, he's teetering on the level of becoming a world-class defender. I mean, what a great person to learn from. But this is the depth that you need. It's not just depth in attack. Getting Saliba back, that's awesome, but you don't need to rush him back now because you've made the positive signings of getting defensive reinforcements.
Stefano, I want to come to you quickly. How do you think Arsenal fans will feel ahead of they've got the early window game today against Athletic Club at 12:45. How do you think Arsenal fans are feeling right now, and how should they feel? Do they feel confident going into this game?
I think the first thing that comes to their head is, okay, no Ødegaard, no Saka. So that's a big concern, just because it's the first game of the window of the Champions League. It's opening up the tournament at Bilbao, a team that has a lot of history, play well at home, even though they're not having a good start to the season. I think the pressure's on here. They need to go, and the fans will feel they need to go out and get 3 points. So it is a little bit of pressure for them. So they'll look at that team and look at the depth that they have and the players that they have on the wings. Madueke was fantastic this past weekend as well. And I'll have a little hot take. I think Arsenal's defense might be the best in the Premier League. Now that they have Saliba and Gabriel back, I do think that they can go out, and if they're not scoring goals, they can win games by locking other teams down and not preventing and not conceding many goals on the defensive end.
And Athletic are also missing Nico Williams, so I'm sure Arsenal will be looking at that and take the positives away. So we got Arsenal playing against Athletic Club today to kick off the Champions League. Also got Benfica welcoming Karabag, making just their second Champions League appearance, and also Juventus facing Dortmund, fresh off that big Derby d'Italia win.